Billy, you time tripping again? I can always tell, you know.
I can't help it.
Time travel isn't something you invent, it's something you experience against your own will. Or do you really time travel at all? Are you actually just experiencing all things all at the same time, all at once? And what the fuck is up with that weird planet he goes to at the end? All this and other things will be discussed and probably not answered in today's episode, where we discuss Slaughterhouse Five.
I had never even heard of it.
I'd never heard of it. This was a viewer request from a commenter, and I should remember his name actually because he always comments. But anyway, did one of your movies, so that's good enough. Never heard of it. I heard the title and I was like, that's an interesting title, because usually the kind of movies he suggests are kind of like interesting arty movies, and Slaughterhouse 5 sounds like it's going to be kind of like a trippy, fun 70s grindhouse movie about a team of serial killers working together or something.
The world's most evil teenage mind creates terror for the school that becomes known as R-High.
But what you actually get is, it's a real enigma of a movie. It follows Billy, I was about to say who starts off in World War II, but kind of the nature of the movie is that it doesn't start off anywhere. You constantly flick through different moments of his life. And it's not just moments of his life like in flashback or flash forward, but he's actually revisiting these moments in his life. He's living in New York, middle-aged, when he starts experiencing these things, as he writes a letter to his editor saying he seems to have become unstuck in time. And later he starts to have flashbacks, but they're not just flashbacks. He's actually embodying the version of himself that was in times previous or times forward in time.
A little kiss.
A little kiss.
A what?
A little kiss.
You fucking faggot!
What's the matter? You fucking married! Oh yeah!
And he can, I guess, affect what's happening, but not affect the future. Everything's in a fixed timeline no matter what. And a lot of what this movie is about, I think, is determinism. It's that idea that, can you change the future? Can you change what's going to happen? Do you have free will?
I mean, how far do you go? Do you actually go to...
All the way to my death. I've seen it many times. I died in Philadelphia.
When he's transported to the alien planet towards the end, they seem to point out that of all the different species they've studied, humans are the only ones that even have a concept of free will. So there's all these bizarre things going on, and that as a description probably sounds either like you might be intrigued, but I bet a lot of people would be put off by it. But this movie isn't pretentious at all. Maybe in some of its scope of what it's trying to explore, it might get a bit pretentious at moments, but I don't like. For me, I went along with all of it because it's kind of like when even a message you don't agree with or like, if it's delivered with wit or humour, you accept it on some level. And this movie is just told and directed and written with such a charm and a wit and a satirical edge. And I couldn't believe how entertained I was by it.
Who plays third for the Tigers?
The Tigers?
The Detroit Tigers.
Who is it?
I don't know.
What the fuck? Ask him!
Came into my head!
Yeah, it's this. I think it's kind of good that it's kind of a short run time as well, because for me personally, I enjoyed it. The runtime did go on, and I kind of thought it's the kind of perfect length, because by the end of it, I thought I'm struggling a bit to digest it, especially as especially the future elements of it. I was like, I kind of understand the past bits about where he was in the war. It must be horrible to keep reliving that as well in person.
Not just like, it's the ultimate PTSD, because you're not just reliving it, you're literally reliving it. You're embodying it again. And you see at times he'll be his wife that he eventually marries doesn't marry, but knocks up with in this bizarre future laboratory that he ends up in. Do you know what? It's actually perfect that we're jumping straight to the end and then back to the beginning.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Like, this seems like we're all over the place, and we are a bit, but that is the nature of this movie in a good way. When he, you know, his missus towards the end, who was an abducted movie star actress, she says to him like, "Oh, you're off on one of your flashbacks, aren't you? Where are you now?" So you see that he's physically present in the wherever he is at in our normal experience of time, but he's also embodying the physical body he has in this other period of time and affecting it. Like, sometimes he'll be muttering or speaking to someone in one timeline, and those words will be muttered in a future timeline.
Yeah.
As, I guess, they're blurring between each other.
Kiss.
And sometimes...
A little kiss.
A little kiss.
A what?
A little kiss.
You fucking faggot!
What's the matter?
You fucking married!
Sometimes they blur in interesting ways. There's one moment where, in his middle age, you know, he's married to this big annoying fat bird who never shuts the fuck
so
up.
annoying.
Who's actually quite sweet. She grew on me throughout the movie.
And you know what, Billy?
What?
I never thought anybody would ever marry me.
They introduce her. You can tell the director and writer wants you to be annoyed by her at the start. She's just annoying. But he's saying goodbye to her, and he's going off with her dad on a flight somewhere. And he starts to see skiers amongst the crowd of people that are waving them off on the airplane, which is so funny. Like, growing up after 9/11 is such a weird thing to see, the way people used to fly and you could walk up and like wave them off, right, like you were getting on a bus. But yeah, so he sees these skiers like knocking about amongst the crowd, and he's like, what the fuck? And he just starts to, I don't know if he'd previously already seen this crash and forgotten about it, even though it hadn't happened yet, if that makes sense. But he suddenly realised the plane's going to crash, but they won't let him off in time, and he's the only survivor of the crash, and it blends in perfectly with his experiences during the war, when he was captured by the German soldiers and sent to Dresden, and they told him a German word to use if there's ever an emergency to any German soldiers.
Fünf is English 5. Schlacht is slaughter. Hof is house. Schlachthof 5. Slaughterhouse 5.
And as he's during the crash, he's gone back to that memory and come back. So when he's woken up after the crash, he's speaking that word for it because an emergency's happened.
5.
Schlachthof 5. Schlachthof 5.
And you start to realise Billy is... He has a growth throughout his life, because during his days in the war, he's kind of a dunce.
Yeah.
He comes off as very dopey and stupid. And he grows into this very, nearly like an authority figure by the time he's old. But you wonder, it's kind of weird, because what is he going through by constantly going back and forth in these events? It feels like he never has a set context.
Yeah.
Like when we're introduced to his wife for the first time, and she's saying how happy she is married, when she says it, it seems like that's the first time he realises they're actually married.
Yeah.
So I don't know, is he just experiencing his life completely non-linear?
I think the only grounding point he has in his whole life, from what I saw in the movie, is his dog. His dog, I think his dog was called Spot or whatever, and whenever he saw like the dog, everyone hates this dog apart from him. They're like, "Wow, this mutt's horrible," and you kind of see flashbacks, or no, actually I assume he's travelling back in time, where the dog's are first a puppy, and then it does something, he has to take it outside, and everyone's like, just get rid of it, and he's like, oh, you can make mistakes, and then later on when he's older, the dog's older. So I think for him, for Billy, or Pilgrim as they call him, but seeing the dog like growing up does represent that linear thing, and he finds comfort from that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So that's kind of like his only grounding.
Yeah, I kind of get that, because there was a recurring thing with the dog.
But I like this movie as well, because it fits a lot into its short 1.5 hour runtime, of the war, elements of the war. You've got kind of like his middle point of his life where everyone thinks he's crazy, basically. Like, you need to go and see a psychiatrist because he's telling them about all this, especially the alien planet, like Terra
We'll get properly into that later. I know I jumped into it at the beginning.
But yeah, I did enjoy it. I don't really like... When I found out this was a time travel flick, I was kind of like, oh, because I just don't really personally like time travel films.
Really?
No, I mean, everyone bangs on about... What was that film? Looper? Or
I've
Jumper?
actually never seen that.
I just thought it was just rubbish and everyone was raving about it. The one with Bruce Willis, and I was like... kind of put me off.
Fair enough. You picked like a crappy recent.
Yeah, okay.
To be fair, there's been a lot of good ones. Yeah. But I loved the war segments.
Yeah.
When he was flashing back to Dresden, and you saw he was meeting these different characters. Like there's this guy called Paul Lazario, who constantly reminds you pretty much every time he comes on screen that his name's Paul Lazario.
Yeah.
Paul Lazaro. It's 2 Z's. Parents? I don't got no family. I said 2 Z's. To whom is send the number?
Who is just such a funny, crazy villain of the piece, basically. Yeah. It's probably like this isn't kind of a movie that has heroes and villains, but if there is, he's your villain. And his introduction is perfect, where Billy is being marched by the German soldiers, and he gets distracted by some hookers up in a window, and he accidentally steps on this guy's, this GI's foot, which has already been mangled in front of him, and he steps on it twice, and when they get on the trains to go to the camps, he declares that, like, you've killed me because you fucking stepped on my foot so many times it's already mangled and whatever. And as he dies, Paul Lazario, who I guess has been his friend or a soldier with him, he tells him what I guess is supposed to be a heartwarming story of that, like, promising that he'll get revenge, but it basically is this bizarre story about him feeding his dog razor blades and a steak because he bit him.
He tried to chew out his own insides, and I said, hey, boy, that's me inside there with those knives.
And it's just so disturbing as he tells it, and he's like so happy, but there's this weird counter juxtaposition of he's so happy telling his dying friend this story, but it's so disturbing what he's saying. And his friend, even, like, his final sort of look at him is like really like freaked out, like, what the fuck. And he just declares that he's just has it out, and at one point I'm gonna kill you, as in Billy. He's telling Billy, I'm gonna kill you. And Billy, at this point in his life, Billy is just kind of like a bumbling idiot. He's a coward. I mean, it's war, but compared to everyone else, he's kind of viewed as a coward. But you start meeting all these hosts of really lovely side characters in the camps, like this British soldier who's kind of like helps him in, and he's just like conning the system. Like, he's always got ways of like getting extra things for people and the other soldiers, and he doesn't want to give the Germans an inch in terms of like embarrassing them or humiliating them. And then you meet Edgar, who's kind of Billy's father figure and just this absolute G. I love this character. The actor really reminded me of John Candy.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
do you know what I mean? And he just had this warm thing. Like, he was kind of like the Colonel Kurtz to William Dafoe for Charlie Sheen in Platoon. Lazario was like this villain, and this guy was just this angel, absolute sweetheart, always talking about what a great philosophy on life. Oh, the British have such a great philosophy on life, and everyone has such a great philosophy on life. And
well, what you just said, son, is a very good philosophical way of life. I admire the English, you know. They have a great philosophical way of life.
Kind but compassionate, looks out for Billy straight away, but also, you know, probably the bravest man amongst all of it. As much as no one wanted to fuck with Lazario, he was out of his mind. Edgar was completely keeping his head amongst the absolute most crazy of circumstances and trying to keep everyone alive and safe.
I got to point out your point about what's he saying about the British soldiers. At one point when they march in, they just, like, the way the film portrays, like, British people, they just start singing like a little jaunty song.
Yeah,
and I'm just looking at it like, right, for anyone that's not from Britain, we are the total opposite. We fucking hate everyone. And
well, do you know what? Yeah,
we never sing.
That's an interesting, because maybe they would have been like back in the day, but that is an interesting thing, because I remember hearing some an interview with an American special forces guy, and he was talking about like his time or whatever, and someone asked him a question about what British forces were like, and he said it was really interesting because when we first started working with them, we were really worried that we were like, oh, something's got to be done, like their morale is terrible.
Oh, really?
But then he realised that no, they have like a cathartic camaraderie through complaining.
Oh,
and
yeah,
I thought,
yeah.
that is the perfect description.
We moan all the time.
But you take it for granted, but it's not really moaning. It's just like it's nearly like like, you know, like you'll moan about, I don't know, the trains being late to your friend at work.
Yeah, yeah.
And they'll be like, yeah, like it's just like a weird thing we do. But anyway, back to the movie. Edgar is an absolute fucking G. And it's interesting because you see that in the future. We find out that Edgar has died.
Who?
The one that was killed in Dresden.
Edgar Derby.
Oh, that's right. Poor old Edgar Derby. Oh.
It's really tragic, not just because you love Edgar by the time you find this out, but also you see that Billy's constantly having to revisit meeting Edgar. And I guess that is a gift because he gets to spend the good times with his friend. He doesn't get to have the memories, he gets to literally live the memories, but he also has to be faced with, you know, his wonderful friend that was killed and died, and have to experience the death as well, like go through that time and time again.
And the way Edgar dies is horrible as well.
Oh, it's
like,
brutal.
Literally, they're obviously at Slaughterhouse 5, they're basically...
Slaughterhouse 5 is also, it's the name of the building that they're being kept in Dresden as the war's going on.
So basically, these POWs, Billy and Edgar, everyone, their job is to like basically clean up dead bodies and, you know, take any belongings that they find and give it to the Germans, essentially. And the German commander specifically says, if you loot, it's punishable by a firing squad. And Edgar runs out with like a little statue, like so happy, like not even a chip in it, and the nasty German commander sees it, takes it off him and just goes like shoot him. And you can see poor Edgar like, no, I wasn't trying to steal it, I was just trying to show it to you. And they just mow him down straight in front of Billy, and he's got to keep reliving that. Like, it's horrid.
Nachgemacht billiges Zeug. Ich will nur sowas in die Wohnung nicht hinstellen.
Stop! Stop!
Knowing it and reliving it.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because this is a humanist movie at heart. I don't think they're actually too concerned with even necessarily the idea of memories and stuff, but certainly not time travel. Like, this isn't the grandfather paradox type movie. It doesn't really care about time travel. It's about the human experience of it.
Yeah.
And it's really lovely though as well because there's this German soldier who you don't speak to him, you don't see him, but you start to see shots of him, and there's, you know, visual storytelling of, you see him, he's a young man, he's probably like 16 or maybe even younger because, you know, this time in the war in Germany, and you see him starting to develop a little romance with this girl, local German girl, and you just see a little glimpse into his life. And then they go into the bomb shelter at one point and they hear the air raids above, and when they come up and emerge, Dresden is absolutely decimated, in ruins. Like, the ash has been bombed into ash.
Yeah. Including
and the reaction, including Slaughterhouse 5, and the reaction of the German soldiers, he's upset and he runs to like his home or where his barracks was staying, and everything's destroyed, and he's desperate and crying. His home's been destroyed, and he takes his anger out on the Americans. And there's this recurring theme, because this is kind of intercut then with Billy in a hospital bed after the airplane crash. Or I think it is. It's so hard to keep up with where he is at different times.
It is.
He's in hospital anyway, and he's next to this obnoxious douchebag who's going on about this book he's written. And you see Billy telling him, like, I was there. But I wondered as well, was he saying I was there as in I was there, or I was there as in I was there seconds ago? Because he kind of wakes up hearing them have this conversation.
Probably both, to be honest.
And the guy's just a douchebag, but he goes with the argument of, which makes sense in the context of war, that what are we supposed to do? You know, we had to do it. Why should our people die?
Yeah.
But you're seeing it from both angles, and it's obviously the message of, in that sense of the movie, is it's taking the humanist angle of, you know, why has it got to be? Why have you got to go to immediately to what about ours, or what about this? I get it when you're planning a war, fuck it, like you got to do it, but afterwards, can't you just say, like, yeah, both things were horrible that they happened.
Yeah.
You know, both things caused misery and death on a huge scale.
Yeah, it's like one of my favourite, if not my favourite Pink Floyd song ever, Us and Them, what you was just saying, when one of the lines in it is, it's a battle of words where both of them will die, like literally.
Yeah.
That's what war is, and that they do beautifully. I really out of the whole film and Billy or Pilgrim's life we see in this, I think for me the war scenes were, I'm not going to say my favourite because they were pretty bleak, but I thought the film portrayed it well, like portrayed the harsh reality of it, because it's not a war film like a Saving Private Ryan where it's just sit. I thought they'd done it really well.
Yeah, because Saving Private Ryan, you know, they can call that a showing the horrors of war film, but it's a glorifying war film.
Yeah,
There's
100%.
No, like that's an anti-war film as Spielberg can do.
Yeah.
Or I guess you could say Schindler's List, but that's a bit different. But it is, and it's so entertaining because the characters are really likable, but also in the war segments, but also it is a satire, and it is everything just told with a wink and a nod, and it's, you know, it's hilarious in its way. But then it really takes a massive left turn, but it kind of still makes sense in the context of this wacky movie, where after the plane crash, mysteriously his wife kind of just goes Grand Theft Auto and starts like going mental with her car.
That was so
driving the wrong way down highways, smashing into people, police chases, and I guess the fact that her bumper got blown off started releasing nitrous into her car, and she died of carbon monoxide, and she died of carbon monoxide poisoning. So maybe she lost her head. Literally, like maybe she started going a bit doolally because of that, but it was just a
weird,
really fun but really weird scene. But after that, so he's now widowed, and Billy goes home, and he said, you know, his daughter wants him to stay the night with them, but he's like, no, I want to be alone. And his son, who up till now had been a little shit
douchebag,
he'd been like a punk, knocking down gravestones, just fuck up in life, but now he's come back and he's a war vet.
And also wanking in the bathroom at family parties without locking the door.
Yeah. I was going to say, that's not the worst thing in the world. He should have locked the door.
He should have locked it, and then he comes in.
Well, do you know what? Now you just thrown me off sideways. I can actually lead that back into this, because he, when he takes the nudie magazine...
Yes. Yeah.
He opens it up, and it's... Well, I guess she's a movie actress as well, but she's naked in this anyway. Well, she's not a porn star. I don't know why she's in this magazine now, thinking about it. But anyway, so she's got her knockers out, whatever. And her name is Montana Wild, and she's this, famous movie star. And you'd seen him before, loving her, and his whole family, Billy's whole grown-up family or teenage family, had been in a movie drive-in theatre, watching her in a movie with her tits out, and his wife's getting angry.
Yeah.
And...
Do you find Messalina unattractive?
That's it. That's enough.
It's really strange, but it's whatever. It's good. And that's when he then gets abducted by aliens after his vet son had come to visit him, who's fighting the Vietnam War. How incoherent was that last 30 seconds?
Yeah,
but anyway, this is the
no,
movie.
no,
This is
no.
what it does to you. He gets abducted by aliens and he gets taken up and put into this kind of like they've made a mini, you know, the way like in a zoo habitat for a gorilla, they'll create like fake trees and grass and stuff. They've got like a fake bubble of
living room
bubble sort of amongst what the rest is like this barren planet, and there's this booming voice of God that speaks to him and explains that they're aliens and they've taken him because they're wanting to study him. And I wonder, I don't know, is it that the aliens having their eye on him is why he's become unstuck in time, or have they taken a fancy of him because he's become unstuck in time, or is it just neither's? That you shouldn't worry about the technicalities of what's going on necessarily, because that's not what the movie cares about.
I took it as the whole thing where he goes back and forwards in time. There doesn't seem to be any reason for why he goes forwards or back to the alien planet, and I take it that he can do it because the aliens have abducted him. That's what
that's what confused
thinking.
Me as well. Or maybe, yeah, but that's what confused me as well, because he's there and it seems like he's in prison there all the time, and they put in with him, abduct as well, and put in with him Montana Wilde, this movie star, and they seem to just immediately fall in love, and the aliens want him to mate, and they keep bothering him, being like, will you mate now? It's like, we just met, you know. And that's when I started really thinking like, okay, you're not time traveling, you've lost it. Because why would it be this actress? Why would any of this be happening? But I don't think it was as well, because also she seemed to be like, oh, we're stuck here forever, and he was physically stuck there, or mentally projected stuck there, but he was also back on Earth at times. Yeah, and his children were trying to get him to be committed, because they were like, he was telling them all about this amazing alien planet and nothing matters because everything's always happening at the same time, and you're like, okay, so is it happening?
Yeah.
Or like, what's going on? Or is he just mental? And then, sorry, you go.
But then the film kind of doesn't really like explain it, to be honest.
Well, it I don't think it's interested in explaining it. I don't think that's what they care about. I mean, what the motivation was.
Imagine if they'd done like the classic, what everyone were doing, like an English but written exam where I used to like write stories, and then the whole time, and then at the end, and he woke up and it was just a dream. Like, you would have been like, well, I've wasted my time now.
I fucking hate when movies or anything does that. It's just like, well, what was the point? Except for Jacob's Ladder. Spoilers. Yeah. But so he's on this planet, and they ask him, so if you see everything all at the same time, have you seen your death? Like, do you see in the future? And he's like, yeah, I've seen my death loads of times. And it's Paul Lazario from earlier, always promising him since the war that he was going to get him, and he gets him.
Farewell.
While he's doing a talk in front of I don't know if it's university or
I think it's work.
It's like a TED talk basically about this bizarre planet that he visits, and explaining how time is an illusion and all things happen at once, and determinism and whatever. And he even explains that I'm going to be assassinated tonight, and I know that already, and there's no point trying to stop it because it's always happened and it will always happen.
If you protest, if you think that death is a terrible thing, then you've not understood what I've said.
And he's assassinated by Paul Lazario. And I started thinking, like, was that why? Because he never really showed fear of Paul Lazario, even when he was a bit of a bumbling idiot.
No.
During the war. So I guess was that because he knew? Yeah. Well, he's not going to kill me yet. And Paul, every time, like, Lazario tries to scare him at times by coming up behind him and grabbing him and being like, "Will it be today? Maybe not. I'll always leave you thinking." And he's always asking, "When will it come?" And I guess he knew it wouldn't come for decades. So why be scared now?
But I guess when he gets assassinated, the film just like ends on that note. And I'm thinking, even though he is dead, can he actually die, or would he just like go back to another period and just keep reliving it?
As by his experience,
like Groundhog Day.
As by his experience, he's already done that.
Yeah, so he just can't die then. Like,
and his actual death might come when he's experiencing just a mundane thing from when he was 5.
Yeah,
yes, because or will he ever die? Like his physical body has died, but technically, the moment he was born, his physical body had already died. Some 30, 40, 50, 60 years later. So he is just an echo bouncing about. His spirit is an echo just bouncing about in time, experiencing itself continuously forever.
Pilgrim! 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 Get your ass over here and give me a hand!
It's kind of like Inception at the end, where you know they got that spinning thing, and then it just keeps spinning, and you're like, oh, will he come back, or are they still in a dream, kind of thing? And it's just like, I mean, the film purposely open ends everything. There is no answer to it, and it's kind of good that as an audience member, what can be frustrating in films is when they think you're so stupid they have to like spoon feed you the answers, and this film doesn't do that. It's meant to be like your own interpretation of events. I mean, some of it's very trippy and confusing, but it's good in that respect. I like it.
Yeah, you kind of summed it up perfectly, where because they don't spoon feed it to you, it's kind of like the way modern trailers, they're so good now, where if they show you just enough to get your mind ticking, no movie could ever actually live up to the trailer, because it's kind of like, you know, or when a scary movie, like the gaps you fill, the blanks you fill in your own mind, nothing can live up to. So I love movies like this where they leave it so open-ended and so unexplained, and because your mind fills in all these wonderful details. And if they ever turned around and did explain, oh no, it's actually this and this, you don't, that's ruined it. But it's very hard to do that sort of movie and it not be stupid or boring or annoying.
Yeah, I agree.
It's very rare, and this is one of them for me. I probably have a higher tolerance than most people for these sort of movies to enjoy them, but this is probably one of the best movies in that regard I've ever seen. Wonderful film. I don't know if it's a forgotten film by many people, but it's a forgotten film by me because I've never even seen it.
Yeah, same.
Or maybe I did see it and or maybe I always knew about it. I'd always seen it and I just hadn't experienced it yet or realised it yet. But it's brilliant. It's wonderful. Like, it's funny, it's satirical, it's interesting, it's never boring. It explains it with words a little bit at times, but for the most part it's just secondary to whatever interesting thing is happening on screen, whatever interesting characters is being explored. And the narrative, it's an interesting concept and they have so much fun with it. Like, a lot of time movies might have a really good concept, high concept idea at the heart of it, but they don't do anything with it. In this, they play with it constantly, and the storytelling is really fresh and modern feeling, actually, and that is as a direct result of this bizarre concept at the heart of the movie. And at its heart, it's a very warm, compassionate movie. Like, it's an anti-violence, anti-hate, anti-war movie at its heart.
Yeah. And
one of I would go as far to say as the most bizarre anti-war movie you'll ever see. Yeah. Like, they go to another planet just to make a point about fucking let's not do dumb shit. So, easy recommendation from me for Slaughterhouse 5. Do you recommend it?
Yeah, I would recommend it. I went into this with, again, never heard of it, never even seen it, which is quite rare for me. I think, like you, I think we do cover a lot of films. And then, you know, I was umming and ahhing. It's a time travel one. But I totally recommend it. What I will say is don't go into it thinking... It leaves a lot of questions without answers, so just bear that in mind before watching it. Don't expect everything to be wrapped up, but I would recommend it also, Declan.
Yeah, I love it. It does really feel like someone took a couple of different reels of different movies, different genres, and just smashed them together and then stuck it into projector.
Yeah.
But what comes out is a jumbled, bizarre, wonderful mess, and I highly recommend it.
Hey, let's get the fuck out of here! Wait!
This is the Filmy McFilm Film Show.